Some stories are whispered, never spoken aloud. Some mysteries were never meant to be solved. In the fall of 1994, in the remote town of Ashford, Colorado, something happened that still chills investigators to this day. A case so disturbing, so impossible, that even now no one can explain it. This is the story of the vanishing at Devil's Ridge. November 2nd, 1994. A group of hikers, 6 friends from the University of Denver, set out on a weekend camping trip in the Devil's Ridge National Park. They were experienced hikers, smart, careful. They planned for every possibility, except for the one they never saw coming. That night, they set up camp near the tree line just before the trail cuts into Devil's Hollow. The area had a reputation, stories of people disappearing, strange noises in the woods. Locals refused to camp there. But these were college kids. They laughed it off until the screaming started. At exactly 2:48 a.m., the park ranger station received a distress call, a man's voice, breathless, terrified. "There's something out here, it's watching us." The line cut. Rangers arrived by sunrise. What they found still haunts them to this day. The tents were ripped open from the inside. Sleeping bags were empty. The hikers' shoes, all of them, were lined up neatly by the fire, as if they had calmly taken them off before vanishing. There was no blood, no footprints, no sign of struggle, just silence. The search lasted 5 months. Helicopters, K9 units, thermal imaging, nothing. No bodies, no clues, no sign they had ever been there. Until April 12th, 1995. A jogger was running along the base of Devil's Ridge when she saw something pale and still in the trees. It was one of the hikers, Amy Reynolds. She was standing upright, perfectly still, her arms by her sides, eyes wide open, but she wasn't looking at the jogger. She was staring straight up at the sky. Her skin was gray, ice cold. When authorities arrived, they found she was still alive. Barely. She was rushed to the hospital where doctors discovered something horrifying. She wasn't malnourished, wasn't injured, but her brain activity was almost non-existent. It was as if she was empty, like something had taken her, used her, then put her back. She never spoke, never reacted, just sat there, staring at the ceiling, unblinking. Until the night of April 21st, when hospital cameras captured something impossible. At exactly 3:12 a.m., Amy sat up in bed for the first time. She turned her head toward the door. And then, in a voice that was not hers, she whispered, "It let me go, but it wants the others." Her heart stopped instantly. The autopsy found nothing wrong with her, no signs of trauma, no reason she should be dead. The remaining 5 hikers, never found. Their families reported strange phone calls for years after. Always at 3:12 a.m. Silence on the other end, then a single whisper, "Don't look for us." To this day, Devil's Ridge remains closed off to hikers. The Forest Service claims it's due to landslides. But the locals, they know the truth. Something happened in those woods. Something took them. And if you listen just before dawn, you might still hear them, faint voices in the trees. Don't look for us. Some mysteries should never be solved. Some things should stay buried. There are places in this world that should be forgotten, places that hold on to the things left behind. This is the story of Room 6, March 8, 2009, Blackwood Asylum, Pennsylvania, a hospital for the insane, the dangerous, the broken. Most of its patients had been transferred years ago, but a few remained, the ones too unstable to release. Among them was Daniel Carter. He had been committed at age 12, labeled as unresponsive, emotionless. He never spoke, never blinked, just stared at the walls. For 17 years, he never uttered a word, until the night the nurse heard him whispering. She was making her rounds at 3 a.m., checking on patients. When she reached room 6, she heard it, a soft, low voice muttering from inside. She froze. Daniel Carter hadn't spoken in almost 2 decades. Carefully, she unlocked the door, stepped inside. Daniel was still in his bed, still staring at the wall, but his mouth was moving. She leaned in, barely able to make out the words. His voice was hoarse, dry, like it hadn't been used in years. "He's awake now." A chill ran through her. "Who's awake, Daniel?" she asked. For the first time in 17 years, he turned his head and looked at her, his lips cracked open into a grin. "He's standing behind you." The nurse ran. She told the doctors, the guards. But when they returned to his room, Daniel was gone. The security footage was checked. Nobody had entered. Nobody had left. But at 3:12 a.m., the camera glitched for exactly 6 seconds. When the static cleared, Daniel was no longer in his bed, just gone. The asylum was shut down 2 months later, the patients transferred, the building abandoned. But sometimes, at night, if you drive past the ruins of Blackwood Asylum, you might hear it. A soft whisper through the broken windows. "He's awake now." And if you're unlucky enough to stop and listen, you might just hear the last words Daniel ever spoke. "He's standing behind you." Some mysteries are never meant to be solved. Some questions should never be answered. Despite years of relentless investigation, there is one case that continues to haunt those who dare to dig too deep. A case so disturbing, so unexplainable, that even the most hardened detectives refuse to speak of it. This is the story of the Blackwood vanishing. It all began on the night of October 12th, 1987, in the quiet town of Blackwood, Maine, a place where nothing ever happened. A town so small, so ordinary that crime was almost unheard of. But that night, something changed. Eleanor Reed was 16 years old. She had spent the evening working a closing shift at the local diner. She was seen leaving at exactly 9:46 p.m., walking home like she always did. It was a short walk, less than 10 minutes. But that night, she never arrived. Her parents reported her missing the next morning. At first, the police weren't too concerned. Teenage girls run away all the time, don't they? Maybe she'd had a fight with her parents. Maybe she'd gone off with a boyfriend. But then they found her footprints. The search team followed Eleanor's tracks along the dirt road leading to her house. They were crisp, unmistakable, and then they just stopped. No drag marks, no sign of a struggle, just a single set of footprints, ending in the middle of the road, as if she had been lifted straight into the air. And that was only the beginning. 1 week later, Eleanor's mother, Margaret Reed, received a letter. No return address, no stamp. The envelope had been slipped under their front door in the middle of the night. Inside a single sheet of paper, the message was short, scrawled in jagged handwriting, "She is not missing. She is with us." The police searched the entire town. They questioned neighbors, teachers, even Eleanor's closest friends. No one knew anything, or at least, no one was talking. But then, another discovery. Deep inside Blackwood Forest, Eleanor's dress was found, not buried, not tossed aside. It was hanging from a tree branch, 30 feet in the air. The fabric was torn, stained with something dark. But here's the part that still terrifies investigators to this day. When the officers pulled the dress down, it was warm, not from the sun, not from body heat. It was warm as if someone had just been wearing it. At this point, the case spiraled into something much darker. Another letter arrived, just 4 words. "You're asking the wrong questions." And then, the phone calls began. Eleanor's mother claimed that every night, at exactly 3:12 a.m., the house phone would ring. When she answered, there was no static, no breathing, just Eleanor's voice. "Mom, it's so dark. Please don't let them..." And then the line would cut. No number, no trace, nothing. By now, detectives were desperate for answers. They brought in James Holloway, a seasoned investigator from out of state. He was known for cracking impossible cases. He didn't believe in ghosts, didn't believe in legends, until he stepped into Blackwood Forest. On the night of March 3rd, 1988, Holloway was conducting a private search near the site where Eleanor's dress had been found. He carried a tape recorder, documenting his findings as he moved deeper into the trees. At exactly 2:37 a.m., his voice was captured on the recording. "I see something. No, wait, someone. Jesus Christ, wait, what is that?" Then static, then screaming. Holloway was never seen again. His patrol car was found abandoned on the edge of the woods, inside the tape recorder. The final seconds of the tape, a whisper, distorted, stretched, a voice that wasn't his. "We told you to stop looking." By 1990, the case was officially closed. No suspects, no arrests, no trace of Eleanor or Holloway. Some believe a cult was behind it. Others claim it was something worse, something not human. To this day, Blackwood locals say if you walk near the forest at night, you might hear it, a soft, desperate whisper carried by the wind. "Mom, it's so dark." Some mysteries should never be solved. Some answers are too terrifying to find. And so, the case of Eleanor Reed remains unsolved. Not all horror stories come from the past. Some are happening right now. March 15th, 2022. A man named Ethan Cole uploaded a 16-second audio clip to a forum for sound engineers. He worked in acoustics, studying how sound behaves in physical spaces. His post was simple. "I picked up a frequency that shouldn't exist. Does anyone else hear this?" The clip was silent at first. Then, it started. A low hum like distant machinery. Then the whispers. Soft, layered, impossible to tell how many voices were speaking at once. People on the forum analyzed it, enhanced it. The whispers were speaking names, not random names. Their names. Every person who listened to the recording, somehow their own name was being spoken in the whispers. And then, Ethan Cole vanished. His last message, posted 3 days later, simply read, "Don't listen. If you already did, delete the file. Do not play it out loud. It hears you now." His account went dark. A week later, one of the forum users posted an update. "I swear I'm hearing the sound when my house is completely silent. It's like it's playing in my head." 2 days later, his account was deleted. More users started disappearing. Their accounts, their emails, even their social media histories, wiped as if they had never existed. Then, the forum itself went offline. No explanation, no archived pages. Gone. But some people saved the file. Some people still have it, and they say once you've heard it, it never really stops. Even when everything is silent, it's there, waiting, and eventually, it says your name.